helping here. And while I was there, I decided to just do some like the joy of it. To find these people and like figure out what the bloody hell it is. You know, because what drives them, huh? Absolutely. So that's, I was looking at something similar to this. I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking more of. I think the next step. So the vast majority of ivory is sold in huge bundles to authenticators who then pass them on to carvers to carve out. So if you're a Vietnamese rich family, you're not going to buy a tusk of ivory. You're going to buy a beautiful carving of ivory. And stuff like that. So the idea is that why not generate a crap ton of artificial ivory, powderize it, pick.
Yes.
Oh,
thank you. What's your name? Is this your first time coming out here?
Yeah, it's Owen Russell.
Owen Russell?
Yeah.
Okay, good to meet you.
Too big for me to deal with that.
We've got some refreshments and vegetables and hummus over there. Okay, good. And then this is Drew and Harmon. Harmon on the right. I haven't met her yet.
How well can they deliver? I mean, the very, very first question is, can you manufacture
So we're going to bring our speaker in via video streaming in around the next 5 minutes. And Matt Markus of Pembient, the Matthew Markus of Pembient. He does the 3D printed rhinoceros horns with the poaching stuff. Okay. Oh, dig in. It's open.
I was able to make a good purchase on some Bitcoin there.
Oh yeah, when was it? What price did you get it at?
I got it at 201.
Oh my god, I totally missed it.
5 of them. I even went into the future accounts. So it does appear that all the negativity caused by these
it's resolving.
That is resolving itself. But that's the reason I liked what they did. Because if you don't put anything out there, no one knows what to choose.
Mm-hmm.
But once you do, then you start seeing the pickup, and you start seeing like where the effort's going to go. But you saw them back off, right? They're like, oh man, anything will be better than what we got now. And yet they put out that.
Did you sell them back off already? Or?
I put them into bit reserve. So yes, I kind of sold them back. I bought them and then I swapped what I had. Actually, I've been waiting for more decline, but we're in that like period where it's either going to correct really strongly up again to 250, or it'll continue wavering, and then we'll have another major crash. So
I feel like it's not going to correct really quickly. Not right now. I feel like it's going to waver for much longer.
Well, it has been going for a while. So I mean, like as far as timescales and how fast it went down, like it all just fell out like water, like getting a hole in the damn raft, right? The way it fell was pretty shitty. Are you trying to connect with?
I am.
Your guy from.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. But anyways, yeah, I thought I'd share that. I was like,
I forgot about Greg. Oh shit! Just a second. Hey,
What's going on?
How are you? My name is Matt.
Adrian.
Nice
to meet you.
Good to meet you.
How's it going?
Are you the chess playing picture on video? Okay, good.
Yeah, what's going on, Adrian? How are you? Oh, nice to meet you. Hi. Adrian. Adrian.
Oh.
my name's Drew. Drew.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, you joined the Marshall's chess meetup?
No. I had been with the giant chess piqued my interest, but they dissolved.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know how long. It must not last really long.
Yeah.
But every time I went to it 5 times, it was never there.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I want to show myself.
Oh cool.
No, I guess I don't have time for cover chess because I'm online.
Oh right on.
But no, I would love to maybe go and.
Yeah, there's a meetup.
see over, you know, the general scope.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, how about you, we'll stagger, since you.
Oh.
You know, Professor Mac, I never said.
Oh, feel free to. Matt, are you with us right
I
now?
said Mac, huh? Oh, I said Professor Mac.
Okay, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Okay. Just a second, the projector started misbehaving, so I've got to get that figured out.
No problem.
Do you make this or do you buy it?
I bought that at Wheatsville. It's kombucha. Hey, Sarah. Did the searching problem did happen again? What was the solution?
It's back. Wait, no, it's gone.
Did it flash up?
Yeah.
I do about it.
Okay, so the projector is back now.
Okay, great.
We will we'll go forward. Just a moment. Okay. So this is our group today, Matt.
Okay.
More people may be coming in the next 15 minutes. Usually not everybody's here at 7.
Sure.
Speakers, headphones,
Hey, Gabriel, what's up? So I invited some people to come online. Oh, I'm going to post the link to the meetup right now. Anybody that didn't come with me.
But no, honestly, like, I'm working family for a while. Family. So there's a lot of problems facing refugees. I've built a company in the U.S. that would
Started. No, I'm not working. Just chilling.
Okay, Gabriel, how are you?
Hey, what's up, man? Doing all right? How's it going?
Matt, meet Gabriel. Have I talked about Gabriel to you before?
I don't think so.
Okay, so Gabriel is from scienceforthemasses.org. He is well known for doing infrared vision with vitamin A and the night vision eye drop
Oh,
stuff.
I see this. Yeah, okay, I seen this. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Were you the guinea pig, weren't you?
I was the guinea pig, yeah.
Yeah. How's your eyesight?
It's fine.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, so I'll make some announcements real quick, maybe about 3 minutes, and then we'll talk to Matt actually. Let's see. So did anybody come for the last meetup with the DMT immunology stuff? Nope. Okay, so I won't talk about that then. But I'm Machiavelli Mac Davis, and this is what, the 4th meetup. I think this is the first one that we're recording. We're going to be putting this on YouTube so we can watch later. And if anybody likes this meetup, if you see a future meetup that you can't come to but really want to, maybe we can change the date. And if there's any topics that you want us to talk about or bring speakers in for, I would love to hear your recommendations. I would like to get a tour of kombucha brewery around here sometime. I also organized the Ferment Everything meetup as of like 2 weeks ago. And there's all kinds of things we can do. On it and Natural Stacks are two local nootropics companies. Natural Stacks likes to say that they're open source nootropics company as well. Nootropics are a new class of drugs you can take that improve cognitive functioning. And we've got a lot of growth in that area here in Austin. At Whole Foods, they recently, in, what was it, April, I think, they started pulling Onnit's materials. Onnit was started by Aubrey Markus, who's a really cool online guy, and what's his name, Joe Rogan, has had a lot to do with the support of that. So, without further ado, let's see. Matt, will you say hello to everyone?
Hello, everybody.
Hey, so I guess I'll just do a quick intro for Matt, and then you can give yourself another intro. But
sure.
So Matt was a co-founder for a company called Pembient, which was, they went through the Indie Bio Accelerator in San Francisco, which is an entrepreneurship acceleration program for biotech startups. And his startup has to do with the synthesis in bioreactors of something that's genetically equivalent and hopefully not discernibly different from rhinoceros horn, and also hopefully cheaper to produce in mass than the cost associated with poaching. Biomaterials, rhinoceros horn has been known to go for $60,000 a kilogram, I think. I recently read a motherboard article in Vice magazine that said in Vietnam it has become a party drug, and it's referred to as the alcoholic drink of millionaires. I'll let Matt go on now. Would you please introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to your group. This is the first time I really used Hangout like this, so if I'm a little off, I apologize in advance. Also, I've never been to Austin. I've always wanted to go to Austin, so I was hoping to actually be there for this live, but unfortunately it hasn't turned out to be that case. But yeah, let me start by talking a little bit about what we're doing, and then we can maybe go into a Q&A session after that. So rhinoceros horn, as Mac alluded to, is sort of a part of traditional Chinese medicine, and or at least originally was so. And in traditional Chinese medicine was a cooling agent. You can think of that as something similar to a fever reducer. And of course, over time, like because it has had this association with traditional Chinese medicine, it's sort of become a status symbol and something that people value. I don't know how you maybe translate that into Western sort of an analogy, but maybe it's something like frankincense or myrrh or even gold. It has this kind of luxurious component attached to it, even though we may not really be particularly luxurious. People over there do. It's ingrained in a lot of myths and a lot of other traditions. And so there was actually rhinos endemic to China and Vietnam, and they've died off over a period of time, partly due to climate situations, and also due to poaching and use in those countries. And now, primarily, the biggest two species of rhinoceros left are in Africa. They're the black rhinoceros and the white rhinoceros. And every now and then you may hear about a rhinoceros going to an extinction event. And a lot of times those rhinoceroses are subspecies of the black or white rhinoceros. Like right now, I believe there's only 4 northern white rhinoceroses left in existence, and that's one of these species is about to go extinct. The biggest population of white rhinoceros is the southern white rhinoceros, and there's still about 30,000 of those left. And then there's also a lot of subspecies of black rhinoceros. There's about 5,000 of those left. So in the wild, there's about maybe 40 to 30,000 rhinoceroses left. And because their population or the numbers are so low, and the demand for this horn is so high, there's a large a price or premium put on the horn itself. And as Mac also talked about, that can be up to $60,000 per kilogram. And so what Pembient is trying to do is use sort of synthetic biology and 3D printing to produce these objects, being biosimilar or bioidentical to actual rhinoceros horn, but do it at a fraction of the price. Right now we're targeting 1/8 of the price of rhinoceros horn on the black market. And that would price us at about $8,000 per kilogram. And in doing so, that we hope that kind of compresses the whole value chain, going from the poaching that's done primarily now in South Africa, all the way up to the end use markets in Vietnam and and so.
Porque ya lo sacamos.
Hey, Moritz, can you turn your microphone off? Sorry about that. Mute. All right. Okay, Matt. Matt, would you be able to turn your microphone up?
A what?
Would you be able to turn your microphone up a little bit?
Unfortunately, can you turn it up on that side? My gain on this microphone is really
okay.
bad.
All right. I got you. How is it? Okay. It's fine.
It's good. Okay. All right. Yeah. This is not a Mac. This is not a really good PC I'm working on here. So basically, the idea then is to use the tools of modern biology to produce something that's desired in a market overseas, and do it at a price that's lower than the price that would incentivize poachers to get it from the field itself. And that's where we're at right now.
I've got a few questions just real quick based on what you've said so far. One is the different rhinoceros species you talked about. Are they the ones that you specifically mentioned? Were these only African species?
Yeah, so the black rhinoceros and white rhinoceros are the primary species, African species. And then there's 3 other species, the greater one-horned, lesser one-horned, and you might have me on the last one right now. But these are not in Africa. They're in India and in Sumatra, and their populations are very, very small. Like we're talking about under 1,000 for these, and actually in the hundreds for some of them.
You seem to know a lot about rhinoceroses. Were you really into them before, or has that knowledge sort of come with you based on your interest in doing this?
It's come with the interest in doing this. This is just a very interesting problem for me because you have something that people really want, and then you have something that you can't really provide to people, and so it leads to a lot of friction, a lot of problems. I mean, some analogies, obviously crop up, like the drug war and things like that, where basically the people want a substance, but it's not available to them, and therefore it engenders a lot of other social problems. And we see a lot of similarities between that, situation, though it's different also, and what we're doing at Pembient.
What is your current cost to produce 1 unit? What's the time scale per unit?
Yeah, so we're targeting $8,000 per kilogram. We're still basically in the process. We're still in the process of scaling up the fermentation process. Basically, there's a lot of companies in this space that are looking to use sort of like synthetic biology to produce not just materials like rhino horn, but also food products like eggs and milk. And what you'll see is basically these companies will go through a lot of stages. And the first stage is sort of like a formulation or reformulation process. And that's a stage we sort of just finished. And in that stage, you try to basically take all the proteins and all the biomolecules and elements or whatever you need to basically reformulate the substance and go through a process to rebuild it. We went through that process, and we sort of, in order to get everything we needed, we sort of like relied on wool keratin as sort of the source for our keratins in that process. And now we're moving from wool keratin, replacing the wool keratins with brewed, basically rhinoceros horn keratins. And that's sort of the process we're in right now, and we're scaling that process up. But we don't have all the keratins, basically brewed yet. So our models are only guesses right now, but we're basically targeting $8,000 per kilogram to.
What form are you planning on?
What can I ask?
Oh, sure.
I didn't catch all that. Did you say wool keratins?
Yes, we started with wool keratins as a part of the formulation process, and now we're swapping out those wool keratins with rhino keratins that are brewed in yeast. So it's kind of like this. Go ahead.
Can you explain what keratin is in case somebody here doesn't know?
Yeah, so keratins are a family of fibrous proteins, and so there's not just one keratin protein. There's a lot of different keratin proteins, and a lot of species have different types of keratin proteins, and they're homologous. So in humans, like keratin's found in hair and nails. In other animals, it's found in hooves, and in rhinoceros, it's obviously also found in its horn. And it's a kind of a unique type of horn too, because a lot of species have a bony outgrowth that's then covered in keratin, whereas rhinoceros horns actually pretty much solid keratin.
Okay. What was your next question?
What form are you planning on distributing the product in? As a whole horn, as a powder, or won't that affect the end user's ability to accept potentially fake product?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the market demands horns. It demands pieces of horns. It demands powders. Obviously, the whole horn being the most complex thing to make and also probably the largest marker of authenticity is something we definitely are interested in producing. And we've produced small models of pieces of horn. We've not, reformulated a full-scale horn yet, but it's definitely something we're very interested in doing, basically because it is probably the ultimate test of authenticity to have a full-scale horn.
So the price of $6,000 per kilo gets dropped a lot, but the initial poachers who are driven to kill these animals receive a bare fraction of that. How much do you think you have to flood the market before the poachers themselves are disincentivized?
Yeah, sure. It's $60,000 per kilogram. So $60,000. We want to move that to 8, so 1/8 of the price, and that'll trickle down the whole value chain. We hope. Right now we're basically that $8,000 price or target is derived from some figures. So basically, I believe that in 1993 there was only about 14 rhinoceroses poached, and at that time the market price was something like $2,500 or $2,600 per kilogram. Actually, it might have been a little bit higher than that, maybe 4,000. But anyway, if you inflation adjust that number forward from 1993, you get $8,000. And that's the reason why we're targeting that $8,000 per kilogram number, is because that's the inflation-adjusted number of the lowest amount of rhinoceros poaching in the past.
Let's have a little bit more general questions at first.
So I actually have a question.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Gabriel.
You made parallels to talking about people making other synthetic biologicals, but isn't this wouldn't a better parallel be the creation of synthetic diamonds, since there's such a since it's a luxury item and there's such a negative connotation, well, not a negative connotation, it's like the process of getting diamonds is actually really, really terrible, just like killing an entire species. One of the things that we've found with the synthetic diamonds is for the stuff that people want for a luxury item, nobody's really buying synthetic. They don't care for synthetic. It's not really something that they want anyway. It's great for manufacturing and construction and stuff like that. But the people who are buying it to splurge, they actually go out of their way to buy something that came from that process, because that's where the value comes from. How do you plan? I mean, that's kind of a big problem right there. The biology is cool, but how do you plan to address this basic issue of people don't want fake rhino horn? They want it chopped right off a dead animal.
Sure. So basically, if you look at the diamond industry is something that society still condones. And so basically there is a legal diamond industry and an illegal or a synthetic diamond industry. So you have two parallel legitimate industries basically competing against each other. And really the diamond is not what's valuable. It's really the certificate that goes with the diamond that's valuable, because that will be backed up by a court of law if you're defrauded or anything else like that. in this current industry, it's all illegal. So basically, there is no government-sanctioned rhinoceros horn trade. And so basically, by injecting horns into this trade, either at the demand side or the supply side, you sort of inject quality uncertainty, because there's no way to really determine whether you're getting legitimate horn or synthetic horn. And in that case, you can drop the price and this sort of stuff starts to happen.
Interesting. Okay.
Matt, so what do you do?
As a policy, I was going to say, as a policy standpoint, then we're against trophy hunting. We're against a legalization of rhino horn trade. I mean, we're actually very much aligned with a lot of the current thinking from NGOs on this, except we're also saying there needs to be other substitutes available, and these substitutes could have an interesting impact on the market.
So off the back of that, wouldn't a cheap rhino horn immediately arise suspicion? And then two, has your considered how they're going to slip these fake rhino horns into the supply demand if there's no if the current trade systems are already illicit and very difficult,
or retaliate against people doing such a thing?
Sure. I mean, this is like an economics training group and not a biologist group, but okay.
Right. Sorry. No.
No, it's okay. I like these questions. I'm probably actually probably better at answering some of these questions than other questions. There's three ways for us to approach the market. One is basically from the demand side. We intend to basically sell these products with partners. We'd like to be a branded ingredients company, sort of like Gore-Tex. Gore-Tex doesn't actually make any end product. It makes liners for jackets. It doesn't really make the jackets themselves. And in doing that, we want to partner with these companies and sort of introduce the brand and the safety the brand has, because basically, you can't really trust what comes from a black market. You don't know what's going to happen. You may be getting something that's loaded with arsenic or something that's not really a rhinoceros horn. There's not any safety or security associated with that. So there's a brand play on the end use or consumer side that has some value. There's the fact that when we do sell these things, we can't really prevent people from relabeling them. So if somebody was to get access to the supply and to take it and resell it in some way, there's nothing we really can do to prevent that, and actually would actually be a benefit to the overall problem. And then also on the supply side in Africa, we're looking at ways of basically bringing these horns into communities maybe that have been sort of affiliated with poaching in the past, and figuring out ways maybe we can grant or loan them these horns for resale up the illegal market chain. So we'd like to attack it from the bottom, from the top of the market, and from the middle of the market, and that's sort of our goal.
Have you validated any of these processes yet, even on a small scale?
Which processes?
Any of the three to introduce the false rhino horn into the trade?
We've not actually introduced anything yet. We've done surveys on the demand side. We've asked people questions like, "What would you prefer, a lab-made horn? Would you prefer a water buffalo horn?" A water buffalo horn right now is the official substitute for rhinoceros horn, and more people were willing to say they'd accept a lab-made horn than a water buffalo horn. So there's sort of indications that people want a better substitute on the consumer side. And we're just now starting to work and talk to people in South Africa about, basically working on the supply side and doing some of these other sort of interventions.
I think I had read or watched that Pembient had some sort of relationship with a Chinese drink company. Is that is there a relationship there to sell the powdered horn, or is that where you wanted to go?
Yeah, they actually had come to us originally. It was a Chinese brewery asking if they could use our powder in a beer product. And you may say, why a beer product? Well, what are the sort of associations with rhinoceros horn in those markets is that it's a hangover cure. I think Mac alluded to the party drink of millionaires. I'm not really sure why people view it this way, or if it's just the fact that it's protein you're putting in your stomach and it's just delaying the alcohol absorption or what's going on there. But people view it as that being something that is associated or can be used with alcohol. And we've talked with them, and it's not clear what we're going to actually do with them. We were hoping to do something in 2015. We've also, though, been started talking with academics and economists, and we want to maybe collect a little more baseline data before we actually start doing these interventions, so we can kind of measure before and after and look for an effect, and make sure that what we're doing is actually doing what we think it's supposed to be doing. I think in wildlife conservation in general, you'll see like very little data science done at all. I mean, people will do whatever they think feels good, whether it's demand reduction or other sort of techniques, and there's not really much follow-up or investigation to see if these things are actually exacerbating the problem or helping the problem. And we intend to sort of break that mold and be more of a data-driven company and try to actually measure what we're doing and put some sort of effect size around what we do.
Hey, Matthew, can you get more technical now about the bioreactor setup and the organism you're using and the precursors and the output?
How do you do it?
Yeah, so I can get to some of this stuff. So basically, right now, we're really sort of like doing scale-up sort of experiments. We're not really, at scale right now. What we're doing is we're using yeast to do this in. Yeast is better than E. coli for a lot of this sort of work, protein work. Pichia is the actual technical name of the yeast, I believe, the strain. And so right now we have like a lot of putative keratin genes, and we've basically inserted them in these organisms, and we've sequence verified that the transformations have taken place. And now we're.
Are you doing it plasmid or recombination?
That's a good question. It's what is it? Alex is not here. I'd have to ask Alex. I believe he was using Gibson assembly. So is that a plasmid.
Right. So yeah, so it's probably a plasmid then. Yeah.
Probably a plasmid. Yeah, you're right.
So you're transforming the genes.
Yeah, transforming the genes. Yeah. Yes. So basically, so right now we're basically doing secretion rate analysis on these transformations. And you need to figure out.
So you don't actually have to harvest the cells.
To harvest the cells? No, well, I mean,
it just spits it out into the solution.
Hopefully, most of these will basically be secreting, yes, into the solution. Not all proteins are a little tricky, especially keratins, because there's a lot of disulfide bonds. So we'll have to see. Some of these things may not work as we want them to work. There's a lot of different keratins in play. This is sort of like we want to say iterative process, right? So basically, we run something and see what we're getting. If we get some, that's great, and then we can start putting that into our formulation process and building up the larger pieces again using the other technologies, while we also simultaneously look at basically capturing more and more of those proteins. So we have attained access to wild horns. We did a lot of characterization on those horns, FTIR, XRF, a lot of analytical chemistry. So we have a lot of signatures of these horns under different sort of scientific assays. And now we're producing prototypes. And when we produce a prototype, we then take it back and we analyze it through all these tests and see where there's any anomalies. And if we find anomalies, then we try to figure out like why those anomalies exist and how can we basically change our process or add the additional proteins we may need in order to pass those additional tests. And one of our interim goals, obviously, is to sort of make it more expensive to test the product and the product actually worth. And so that's something we're getting to right now, is getting close to coming on that price where it would cost a significant amount of money to test the product, and then the product actually work.
Okay, I've got two questions. Can you show us any pictures of either the process or the horns? And what do you do in the company? Who else works there? And what's your role? What's their role? That kind of thing.
Sure. Okay. Number one, I've never used this before. So do I just drop these pictures in chat or in the chat, or where would I drop these pictures?
I don't know. Let's try it.
You can do a screen share.
You can do it. Yeah.
Screen share. Okay. Let's see. Let me get the file. Let me see if I can get the file up here. While I do this, I'll try to talk. My role is sort of gravitated toward being the business person, talking to groups like this, talking more about the economics actually. So I'm glad we got some of those questions. And my background is really in statistical genetics, biostats. So it's actually pretty good for some of these things because we did do a survey. There's like some quote unquote epidemiology involved in doing this, trying to figure out what people's preferences are and what their thoughts are and where they obtain things and things of that nature. And so that's been very helpful. And then we also have my co-founder who's more of a biochemist. He's actually done a lot of work with keratin in the past. He's been very helpful in doing these formulations and getting things that spectrographically and genetically match rhinoceros horn. We also have several consultants that we use right now. One of them is working on basically doing the transformations, and another one is going to be working on testing the secretion rates for us. We have also advisors. One of the advisors in traditional Chinese medicine. He's been a very great resource for helping us understand more about that tradition and heritage. And then also we have people who have advanced degrees in tissue engineering. Tissue engineering has always been something we've been interested in, but we haven't really gone down that path yet. It's a much more expensive path, and it's not really clear that it's going to give us anything more than what we're doing right now, which is really more of a biochemical synthetic biology pathway. And actually, we think that this pathway may scale better because we're not really sure what the growth time would be on sort of growing a horn through a tissue engineering approach, if there's any way to accelerate that process or not, whereas our process right now is a very industrial process, and we like that. All right, I will now go to screen share. Let's see if that's working. Can you see the screen?
We don't see it yet. Let's see. No, I'm not going to screen share, but he'll screen share.
I clicked on the button and it didn't really do anything. Do I need some permissions or something like that?
Are any
You should bring up all your screens. You should just be able to click on one of them.
It's not doing anything. Just
all right.
When I mouse over, it says screen share, but then it doesn't really do anything when I click on it.
And then if you click on it, it doesn't do anything?
No.
Okay.
Dump some stuff into chat potentially. Let's see. Can you?
Yeah. Why don't you try that? Or if there's any links, we can load the links.
Okay. What's the showcase? Does anybody understand what the showcase does?
Showcase. What is that? I think that's YouTube. Is it? Oh, showcase. I don't know. It allows us to put. Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let me see what this.
Okay.
Right.
Well, test. Okay, I got test.
That's good. All right. Choose files to share.
That sounds right.
All right. So this will work, I think. All right. So let's try this one to start with. All right. So that kind of works. Can you make that large for them? And I will continue to do this start process.
Okay, I need official permission from you, so I'm going to click request access.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it says the request for access has been sent.
All right.
Can whenever you're ready, can you tell us how you got into the Indie Bio Accelerator program and what it was like around there?
Yeah. So did that come through, by the way?
Let's find out. Yes, it looks like it's loading, I think. Maybe. Oh no, no, I don't think it really is at all.
I did give you permission.
Yeah, I think we have permission, but it's just not coming on this browser. I mean, I could try a different browser, but
well, while you figure that out, I'll talk about the IndieBio.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, IndieBio is it's a relatively new what do I want to call it, the accelerator for biotechnology. It's basically funded by SOS Ventures, which is about a $200 million venture capital firm based in Ireland, in Cork, Ireland. IndieBio has now run about 2 classes. The first class was in Cork, Ireland. The second class was in San Francisco, and that was the class I was a part of. And the third class is now about to be announced, I believe, and we'll start running shortly, maybe around September 15th. There's been a lot of interesting companies in these classes. Again, the companies I'm most familiar with are sort of the animal replacement companies. We kind of joke that there's sort of a new industry forming, like we call it the animal replacement industry. That includes a moo-free, which is sort of building a vegan milk product, or a cow-free milk product by brewing the proteins in milk and then reformulating sort of a biosimilar milk that's vegan, even though it has animal proteins in it. Likewise, there's another company called Clara Foods that went through IndieBio, and they're also brewing egg whites in yeast, and that's sort of to develop a hen-free egg substitute.
So it sounds like a lot of this biomaterial stuff, it's ethically driven, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I think there's ethics, obviously, and there's also either basically farming, factory farming, or poaching. In the wild, they're environmentally destructive, both of them. I mean, farming consumes a lot of water right now. It produces a lot of carbon dioxide. It's not necessarily a very scalable enterprise, and it's sort of wasteful to create a whole animal and then sacrifice it for just a portion of it. And so basically by just growing the exact portions of proteins that you want, I think it's a much more efficient process. And so I think there's also a business case besides an ethical case to be made for pursuing these technologies.
So the rhino horn picture loaded.
Okay, great.
So here's the picture. I've got it up now. Do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, so I mean, you asked me about prototypes. So this is one of our earlier prototypes, and it's not that large. It's maybe about, what do I want to say, maybe, it could fit in the palm of your hand. But it's basically it's a solid object. It's basically, gone through our 3D printing process. And if you were to sample some of it, it would, do PCR on it, would amplify up some of the markers that are associated with rhinoceros horn, and you pass that test. And also if you were to stick it into FTIR, which is a Fourier transform infrared spectrograph machine, it would basically trace a similar signature to rhinoceros horn. And so forensically, if you look at this in a number of ways, it would basically appear to be rhinoceros horn. And also the density, texture, and look and feel are also match rhinoceros horn.
Well, what other tests would it need to pass, and what improvements have been made since like the next version, maybe, if that was one of the earliest prototypes?
Well, I think our biggest concern, obviously, is the keratins. I mean, it's not, basically, like I said, all these animal replacement companies, they start by doing a reformulation, by saying, like, could you even just, given the components from somewhere, could you sort of like, build, recombine things and produce a replacement or a substitute? That's always the first question to see. And moo-free's done that with their milk, and Clara's done that with their eggs and stuff like that. And so, that's what we did with this prototype. So obviously something like MALDI-TOF potentially could, show that like maybe the molecular weights of the keratins aren't right, things like that. So these are definitely things we're very interested in basically correcting. These are all defects, and basically we know where the defects are, and over time we intend to remove as many as possible. And then, it starts getting more and more expensive. I mean, eventually you have to move to something like X-ray crystallography or something like that to see, like, is the confirmation of the keratins correct, and things of that nature. And so, there's always going to be sort of a chicken, or not chicken, but a cat and mouse sort of game here. As we produce one generation, There's going to be people who will say point out flaws in that generation, and then we'll work again to make the next generation pass those things. It's like hacking in a lot of respects. Basically, a hacker will probe a system and find a flaw, and then the flaw will be patched, and then the game will continue.
Hey Matt, do we have a genome for the black rhinoceros?
That's a great question. Yeah, so there's a genome for the white rhinoceros. It's been basically sequenced by the Broad Institute in 2013, I believe. You can get that on the UCSC genome browser if you like. For the black rhinoceros, there actually is no genome sequence yet. And what we did actually earlier this year was we actually ran a crowdfunding campaign. We raised about $17,000 to sequence the black rhino. And we're actually working with the University of Washington here in Seattle to do that right now. They're going to be basically sequencing the black rhino genome, and then we're going to be releasing it for free on DNA Nexus, which is a kind of a cloud platform that hosts genomes. They've done some work with Ebola and other sort of genomes in the past. And that's going to be hopefully available by the summer of 2016.
Okay, so obviously that'd be an attempt to try to identify the actual genes, the variations that the black rhinoceros use. And I guess you would suspect that they're pretty close to the white rhinoceros, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so that's kind of the assumption we're going off of right now. Is we've identified a lot of the keratin genes in the white rhinoceros, and we're based. That's what we've used right now to go forward with our yeast program.
Do they have the same pigment?
Does it have the same what?
Are the horns the same color?
Same color?
Yeah, for the white rhinoceros.
Oh yeah. The white, I'm not sure why they're called white rhino and black rhino. They actually look very. I mean, their coats are similar. They're both gray. The horns are very similar in color. There may be some morphological differences. Sometimes you look at a black rhino, its horns seem maybe more curved and thinner, whereas the white rhinoceros horns seem more stubby and thicker. But yeah, in general, there's not. I mean, there's differences, but I think the differences are very subtle between the two species.
Okay.
Did you guys talk about crowdfunding at all yet?
Oh, we spoke about, yes, the Black Rhino Genome Project, which was as I mentioned, successfully crowdfunded earlier this year, actually in July.
How much was that for?
So we raised $17,000 on experiment.com to do it. And the reason it was sort of cheap is because we actually are going to use the white rhinoceros genome as sort of like a ladder to do assembly against. So we're not going to do this. We're not going to do de novo assembly. We're going to kind of cheat and leverage the existing sequences. And obviously there'll be some hard parts, and there's actually an extra chromosome in the black rhinoceros, so that'll be kind of interesting. That'll have to be done, by itself, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think it'll be very interesting.
There's like an X, Y, and a Z chromosome for the white rhinoceros.
Oh, it's an extra pair. I mean, so it's an autosomal pair for some reason. I don't know what I don't know what it does or what's on it. But it's just.
What was that? I didn't get to catch that. What kind of pair?
An extra autosomal pair. So it's.
Is that you guys? What is it? What does that mean?
That's just non-germline.
Okay.
So now
it's like X and Y would be the sex chromosomes. There's no Z per se. It's just basically another pair.
Oh, in birds, there's a chromosome.
There's a what chromosome?
Birds have a Z chromosome.
Really? I did not know that. Yeah, no, this is a mammal. I know more about mammals than anything. So
yeah. Okay, that makes sense to you guys.
Good thing 3D printing.
Yeah, so we do have a question from the back about how international customs would deal with rhinoceros horn. Are they, like, for example, in my mind, maybe if they ever see a rhinoceros horn, they know it's illegal or something like that. How will customs deal with this? Sure.
So the laws written around sort of the trade in wildlife products, those laws are not basically biochemical laws. It's not like the drug trade where there's basically cocaine is described, and if it's something matches the chemical signature of cocaine, then it's cocaine. Actually, nobody up to this point, we were probably one of the first organizations that have really done a detailed analysis of rhinoceros horn and its composition. So there really is no book or law or statute that basically describes a rhinoceros horn. What really the trade is governed by is provenance. It's like, you know, do you have the right correct forms basically for shipping these goods from X to Y? And, you know, you can legally ship rhinoceros horn if you have the right CITES permits. CITES is the kind of the international legal framework that governs the trade in wildlife. We sort of sidestep all that because we can show basically legally, you know, through paperwork that this product was built in a lab, and so we've actually shipped stuff into China. We just basically document that, hey, here, you know, it's from Seattle, it's going to China, it was made in a lab. We're swearing to that fact, you know, and basically that's all customs really needs.
Okay, so I've been in 3D printing for a few years. I'm interested as to how you 3D print this. Just in general, I'm sure it's something that you're improving upon constantly as a part of your process. But does the keratin come in filaments, for example, or is it printed a different way?
That's a good question. Yeah. So yeah, with the keratin, there's different ways to do this formulation, and sometimes there's intermediate hacks. Again, I would call them, like one of them is using like something called PVP or spun PVP as a larger filament, and that's sort of a hack that can be done. I'm not really enamored with that hack.
What is PVP? Is that's a kind of plastic that you later dissolve?
It's like an edible plastic of some sort. Okay. I'm not the chemist here, but
right.
But one of the things we're very interested in is basically higher accuracy 3D printing. You know, we were basically working or talking with a company that had basically 1 micron level accuracy on their bioprinter, and obviously the bioprinter had to be severely changed and modified for our process. But with that level of accuracy, there's a possibility of actually printing these filaments almost directly. Not that, you know, these filaments in the horn are sort of like a little larger. When people grind the horn into a powder, like sometimes you'll see these things flake off, and that's sort of, we're not talking molecularly, we're talking more of these sort of macro sized filaments. There are micro sized filaments. They're not at the molecular level, but they're at, you know, kind of the micron level, and that's what we're sort of looking at, maybe reproducing directly through 3D printing.
Okay, so you were breaking up a little bit there on our end, but it sounded like you were interested in 1 micron level resolution, and exactly. That the filament too was like below 10 microns, perhaps, or
yeah, some of these filaments are sort of microscopically sized filaments. They're not like, you know, they're not like a chain of keratins at the molecular level. It's more of like well, it is, but it's a more of a macro or micro level construct than
are there other fields or applications where people have been doing 3D printing using microfilaments?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, actually.
I've never heard of one.
Yeah, I don't. A lot of things we do with 3D printing. I mean, obviously, 3D printing again is like a large wheelhouse of technologies. I mean, from metal to ceramics to, you know, bio printing to plastics. You know, we don't necessarily. We're not your standard 3D printing process, and so you know, I think that you know, it's hard to basically compare and contrast between different sort of 3D printing technologies.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I've never heard of a 3D printing technology that used micron-sized filaments. So that's.
Wouldn't y'all want to use deposition, like some type of deposition method?
Like chemical vapor deposition or something?
Yeah, I'm guessing that, you know, molecular deposition. Would that work, or the filament's too large?
I would have to talk to George. He's been doing a lot of the work with 3D printing. All I know is basically, you know, what we need to do is more akin to sort of you know, ceramics printing than sort of plastic printing. So or even bioprinting. So.
You put the powder together.
Oh, so he's asking about pressurizing, or like similar to, what is it called when you you know, putting it in a high pressure chamber and then compressing it. Is that?
Yeah, we've heard of that. We have not done that, no, but but yeah, that's also like I said, there's like a lot of different interesting technologies in 3D printing. And
okay. Yeah, additive manufacturing is a wide area. Did you guys have any questions? Yeah.
So you mentioned that it's in China they consume it.
Mhm.
So how do you make sure it's safe for consumption?
Did you hear that?
It was a safety question about.
Yeah. How do you make sure? How do you make sure it's safe for consumption for people?
It's a good question. Yeah, so we're very concerned with that. Obviously, I've tasted it. My co-founders tasted it. So we eat the dog food literally. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we can do. I mean, we're basically, and it depends what the application is. If it's going to be orally ingested, then there has to be sort of safety tests. We have run some of those safety tests on some of the previous formulations. That involves, unfortunately, feeding it to rats is one of the sort of standard safety tests. And basically, from a theoretical standpoint, also documenting, in journals or whatever, that all the components don't really have any sort of known, carcinogenic or other sort of toxic effect. And so, since we're dealing with keratin, and melanin and calcium, all these things basically, are found in a lot of different foodstuffs already. People already know about the fact that keratin isn't really digested in the stomach. From sort of like the simple safety studies we've conducted, plus the plethora of journals documenting the safety of these ingredients in the past, I guess it's safe enough to assume that is ingestible. I mean, this sort of falls in the area of supplements in the United States or functional foods in China. Now, as you know, they're not super highly regulated areas, and so I think we're comfortable enough that that we've done enough research ourselves, and that the substances that we're using independently of each other don't have any negative effect, and so we're assuming, I guess, that as a combination, they're not going to have a negative effect either.
So right now, the FDA getting its fingers all over this isn't a concern.
No, well, we would actually like to register with the FDA just preemptively, because that would help us, attain registrations in China and Vietnam with the ministries of health there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I don't think whether, I guess other concerns would be would we be considered a GMO or a product of GMO? I mean, we actually don't have a genetically modified organism inside of us. We're not producing an organism; we're just producing proteins, but. That's sort of a big debate right now going on with some of these, derived foods, like I was talking about the eggs and the milk. Like, how will those be regulated? Will they be considered GMO products or not GMO products, and how will that impact labeling of these products and things of that nature?
Yeah, I was telling somebody about this meetup earlier yesterday, and they asked, "Oh, how are the horns produced?" And I said, "Through genetically modified yeast," and they're like, genetically modified? I thought we were against that. And do you have anything to say about genetic modification and perhaps both its the ethics and politics of it with food and in just general bioengineering, how it affects your company?
Sure. Yeah. I think GMOs are a very interesting topic of discussion. I think, unfortunately, the way GMOs were introduced to the public was sort of in the most extreme manner possible, which would be basically interspecies genetically modified GMOs. I mean, so Monsanto started by basically saying, like, here, we'll take this one thing from over here, and we'll take this other thing from over here, and we'll put it in your corn, and then your corn will have pesticide growing in it. And that's actually sort of interspecies GMO design is actually sort of the most radical sort of GMO you could start with. And between interspecies GMO, there's also interspecies GMO, and you see things like there's a company called Simplot in Idaho, and they actually do a lot of GMOs around potatoes. But what they do is they take some potato genes and transfer them to other potato genes, to other potatoes. And so they're basically moving potato genes around different strains of potato. And people seem to understand that better, are more accepting of that sort of intraspecies GMO process than sort of the interspecies GMO process that Monsanto began with. And then stuff like Clara, Mufree, Pembient, all these companies brewing these products, the GMOs never even escape into the environment. So the GMOs are basically, produced at the lab, they're contained in tanks, they're destroyed, and the proteins that they produce are exact copies of the proteins that we produced in nature. They're purified out and then put into products. So that would be like the third type of GMO, but probably the least maybe offensive GMO possible. So I would kind of posit maybe if we had started with this sort of like contained GMO process first, and then move to sort of the intraspecies process next, and then maybe consider doing the interspecies process finally, maybe GMOs wouldn't be such a big threat or perceived threat to people. And maybe we wouldn't even gone to interspecies at some point, but since we started backwards sort of and went to the most extreme use of the technology first, I think that sort of generated a lot of skepticism and a lot of concern. And I can understand why that would be the case.
So how do you feel about the open source movement? Is Pembient going to be profiting from proprietary technology, or is it going to be, I don't know, open sourcing things? That's always a question nowadays.
Well, we're half and half. Obviously, the Black Rhino genome is going to be public. It's going to be open source or public domain. So there's a lot of things that we'll be doing that we'll be releasing solely to the public, to the public, and we expect nothing back, from that sort of effort. There are other things that we'll be producing that will be proprietary, and so basically, we hope to be sort of a good corporate citizen and sort of, like Sun Microsystems previously or whatever, produce some open source things and also have some proprietary things. And I think that's, for us, the appropriate balance.
What other proprietary things?
Well, obviously our yeast strains, like we're not going to basically release our strains of yeast. I mean, we've built them in-house, sequence verified them, and I don't see a point in time where we would release them. I'm never going to say never. You never know. I mean, usually as these things advance, some things become less valuable, and other things become more valuable. And so sometimes the things that are perceived as less valuable or less core to your current business, you may want to then eventually open source. So I'm never going to say never, but off the top of my head right now, like there's definitely some things that we wouldn't necessarily open source immediately.
Since we're talking about proprietary information and so on, you've mentioned a few of your team members as well as your own role. How does your team, do you have, how are you answering the business side of this problem? How are you filling the roles that need to be kind of on the ground, developing the supply chain infrastructure needed to slip these products in and profit off of your the IP you're generating?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, I mean, it's still early days. At some point, I think we would like to, hire, a VP of Asia or whatever, to help us with that process. We are in talks with various companies overseas, but it's a long process to sign up somebody to get them to use your branded ingredients in their final product. So and also it doesn't help that we want to basically move slowly. We want to make sure we measure our impact, and so we're basically trying to figure out like what do we need for 2016, like what kind of roles will we need going forward, and where should we start? We originally very bullish about starting in East Asia initially, but we've thought about it more, and maybe the place to start is South Africa and more on the ground if we want to make this an effective intervention from the get-go. So I think once we have those questions answered, we'll know a lot more about how we're going to scale, if we're going to scale on both sides of the market, one side of the market, or what we're going to do. And a lot of those questions will probably have better answers in early 2016. I'll be going to South Africa, later this month, or in September actually, later in the month of September. I'll be meeting with a lot of people there, and we'll have a better understanding of where we should start the rollout going forward. Like I said, initially we were very excited about China, but with this beer product and whatnot, but we're still not 100% sure that's where we want to start.
So if one had follow-up questions and maybe a fair amount of access to these communities in South Africa, how would one get in touch with you to help you out?
In South Africa specifically?
Mostly East Africa, but the trail does go down to the south.
Do you want to tell a little bit more about yourself? So
I'm just curious.
Okay.
I can do that later on, but I don't take too much time. How does one get in touch with you, Side?
So I mean, we're a lot of people we're going to be talking to in South Africa are part of the park system or run NGOs or are in the government. and other other places. And so it's going to be basically talking to them and figuring out what we can do in order to get get our products out to the communities that may be around park systems or whatever, or maybe sort of drifting towards poaching as being a way of augmenting their income streams or whatever, and figuring out if there's a way to wean them off of that and have them use our product or a synthetic biology product instead. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, honestly, but I think we need to. I think it's something that we've sort of fortunately neglected in looking at East Asia specifically for the last year, and we sort of weren't concerned about the supply side. But the more we look at the problem, the more we view that the supply side also has to feature into a solution. It would be great if South Africa and these other countries could benefit from what we're doing. Obviously, South Africa has a lot of sugar cane. That's great feedstock for yeast. So maybe our production plant should be located in South Africa. These are all things that we're now trying to figure out, and how we can basically create jobs and wealth for the communities that are relying on poaching. I think that needs to be part of the equation.
Did that answer your question? Or
It did. And then just a quick follow-up. I'm a U.S. diplomat to the G20, and I work with East Asian, Southeast Asian, and East African countries. I might have some connections that could be come handy for you. How would I get a hold of you to pass on some information?
Sure. Yeah. I'll tell everybody my email, but don't leak it out. It's just Matthew@Pembient.com. So if anybody wants to email me, feel free to email me. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
in the back?
Well, we laugh. I laugh at I think it's a placebo effect, where these people are using the rhino horns for, sexual vigor and things like that. But I was just curious, since you're really into it and you're making it, if you've used your product yourself, or if you have had people use it and had people come back and confirm that they get similar placebo effects that they get from the real stuff, or what it is exactly, perhaps if you were to do a double-blind study, would people be able to tell the difference between a real rhino horn and your yeast rhino horn?
Are you getting high off your product yet?
Yeah. I've tasted the product. I've not consumed large amounts of it. We've actually been people have approached us and wanted to do double-blind studies. Obviously, it's a little bit difficult to obtain rhinoceros horn now legally, but in China there are actually rhinoceros horn farms. So it's maybe possible to sort of legally get the substance and conduct these sort of experiments in China. The only sort of really randomized, controlled, double-blinded, trial that's been done with rhinoceros horn in humans was done in 1993 in Taiwan. It was done sort of to find a replacement to rhinoceros horn before a ban took place on the product in Taiwan. And that study actually did find a statistically significant effect at fever reduction in children, which surprises a lot of people. But that's actually was the traditional use of rhinoceros horn, was a fever reducer. A lot of these other sort of effects are actually folklore sort of effects. In fact, the aphrodisiac effect is really more of a Western myth than a traditional Chinese sort of folklore belief. And actually sort of been backfed from the West back into China now, where now it's sort of becoming a real myth, even though it was not originally part of the traditional Chinese medicine, compendium. So as far as people using the product and reporting anything, I don't think we've had enough people or big enough samples to report anything. I personally don't know if we'd actually ever, get anything. Again, the only thing it's ever been sort of shown to have any sort of effect in is fever reduction in children. And again, even in fever reduction in children, things like acetaminophen or aspirin are shown to be just as effective or more so. Of course, you have to be careful. You can't give children aspirin for Reye syndrome and other things. But yeah. And I think I should also emphasize too that a lot of people talk about the traditional Chinese medicine aspects of rhinoceros horn, but it's been used in a lot of other things also. Keratin is used in the West greatly, right? Keratin is used in hair products. It's used in skin treatments. People in the West love their keratin. Of course, that keratin normally comes from wool or from horns of other animals. But like, it's not that keratin has no effect. I mean, keratin is used quite a lot in the West as a product that exhibits hair strengthening effects and skin tightening effects. And then also, keratin also, or rhinoceros horn specifically, has been used as a carving material. In fact, a lot of great art has been done in rhinoceros horn, and now there's a lot of belief that a lot of the trade is not so much traditional Chinese medicine, but also in durable goods such as drinking cups, chopsticks, bracelets, karma beads, things of this nature. So rhinoceros horn it's a material that has many uses, and it's not just a medicinal product.
Do you have any more pictures to show us? Was it just that one, or?
Oh no, I have more. Let's see if this process to share might be kind of tedious, but let's see.
Okay. Maybe we can.
Do you want anything specific that you're looking for?
Okay. We'll just share them afterwards.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I probably could share. Well, let's see. Actually, you know what? Here, I can do.
I was wondering if you mentioned as a durable good, rhino horn has value. Is the way that you are putting this together, 3D printing it, is the hardness comparable? Has any variation in your technique affected that particular aspect?
Yeah. Would that mean the hardness was compromised, or?
Yeah.
Or even what you mentioned. Even you mentioned using PVP, whatever that is. Maybe you could add something to it that would make it even more better to carve in some way.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of there's lots of things that you could do to augment, and some of our patents cover this. Like even from the medicinal side, like you could put Viagra in and have supercharged Viagra rhino horn. You could have supercharged carving material rhino horn. I mean, it's possible to alter the substance in a way that makes it better for a particular use case. We do have surprisingly, a lot of artists have reached out to us about rhinoceros horn because it is sort of like an interesting material from an art angle.
Oh man.
We do have materials out there now with artists who are doing carving on it. We'll basically be getting their feedback on how good it performs as a carving material. I mean, traditionally it's an excellent carving material, and so we're hoping to match those physical properties. Libation cups or drinking cups were sort of a big thing in ancient China, and they're very intricate, and they have really interesting designs on them. And so we're hoping that we can basically, again with our product, replicate those kind of properties.
Can you narrate any of these pictures? I'm here at the bottom, and I've
sure.
got some pictures of you in Vietnam.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't have. Well, actually, maybe I do have the same exact folder here, but local. So anything that starts with Vietnam would be taken in Vietnam. Yeah. So I guess there's a TCM pharmacy picture there. There's a picture of me meeting with some traditional medicine folk in Vietnam. There's a statue of a rhino at one of these museums. It just shows you how part of the culture this sort of is. There's a case full of horns there in one of the pictures. Then everything that starts with Pembient is sort of like maybe stuff we've done in a lab or lab shots. There's 2 videos there, I guess. Products and Pembient.products is a video of the products. Somebody holding them with a glove on, I think. Pembient bike is just me on the.
In the picture of you with the guy with the beard, it says Pembient in the lab. Is the thing between you, is that a 3D printer or is that a reactor? It's a mixer?
It's a mixer of some sort. That was our lab in Seattle. That's George, my co-founder, with the beard. Yeah, I believe that's just a mixer.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to, you can play one of those videos if you want. Vietnam bike ride, you can play that if you want.
All right, we're playing the bike one. Oh, no, 9 seconds. Nice bike ride.
Very short. Yeah, sorry.
Wasn't it rhino horns, I heard?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so basically, when I went to Vietnam, we did a survey in Vietnam, and then afterwards, I went to Vietnam for a month, and part of that month was basically going to interview and talk to people who use rhino horn. And so basically, I'd go out with this team on these motorbikes all throughout the city, Saigon in the south, and we basically go to people's houses and then talk to them about their use of rhino horn. So that was just like a quick little bike ride shot along the way.
All right, cool. Yeah, Mike?
I don't know if it's been asked, but how far along is the crowdfunding of it and the acceptance of this hydrogen?
How far along are you?
So yeah, so I mean, we're still, we've done formulations or reformulations. We've basically taken these materials. Actually, even when I was in Vietnam, we had a basic powder that we took to people. We're not really selling anything yet. Again, my concern is that I want to basically have all the keratins in place that I want there. I want a very high fidelity product to be sold, and so I don't think that's going to be available again until later in 2016, and then that's the point where we'll start rolling it out, in different markets, at different areas, like maybe in South Africa and also in Vietnam or China, and that's when we'll start working with our partners in academia to collect data on this sort of intervention and actually measure what the impact is of our intervention. Because again, I think you'll see a lot of stories like, oh, drones being used in South Africa. Well, it's just like some guy just woke up and said, like, wouldn't drones be cool for this? And they just deployed them. And there's really not much science or controlled experimental process going on here to see what the drones actually have an impact. Drones are a dual-use technology. A drone can easily hunt a rhino as protect a rhino. I don't think people really understand that, like, when you roll these technologies out, a lot of technologies are dual-use technologies. In fact, we're probably the only real non-dual-use technology. And so you have to be very careful when you do these sort of interventions, even things as simple as demand reduction. A lot of people are trying to basically reduce the demand for wild horn, but they go about doing this in a variety of different ways. Some of these ways are like basically saying that, like, oh, rhino horn's just keratin, and you shouldn't value it so highly. But at the same time, that the message also is sort of received that, oh, your ancestors are sort of stupid. And that's not really a great, message to be sending to cultures that venerate their ancestors. So I think, we want to be very careful as we roll things out and actually measure what we're doing and do it in a controlled way. Whereas I think a lot of things that have been done in the past in wildlife conservation has been very much shoot from your hip and not worry about the ramifications. If we have good intentions, that's all that matters. And I don't think good intentions are enough in this sort of business. You also have, a way of measuring what you're doing.
You said you want to do a very high quality, and I heard somewhere, that you could potentially reduce the pricing by flooding the market. So it's either quality or quantity. So my question is, are those the two methods of marketing this, and is there a possibility of a third, which is like link in with all the Eastern or Chinese medicine shops that use this supply? And if they accept it, they'll market you as their product. They'll do the marketing for you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, we're not really. I mean, one problem with traditional Chinese medicine is that it's not. I don't know if it's a problem, but it's a difficulty. Is that there's no sort of like Walmart or Walgreens of traditional Chinese medicine, so it's very hard. Very labor-intensive process to go and find all these people and get them to adopt the product. It requires a large sales force if you're going to proceed in that manner. And so, for that reason, we really haven't really investigated that so far. Of working in that way. I mean, we'd like to work with larger companies that already have a distribution, process in place and work with them, because we can make potentially a bigger impact faster.
Well, that helps. We just had a Eastern and Chinese medicine health fair this weekend, and yeah, and so we made some good contacts. So maybe it'll help you try to pseudo-centralize a very decentralized market. You're absolutely right; it's very decentralized.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'd love to. You know, again, we love to talk to as many people as possible. So if you can, you have time, send us those contacts.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
I actually have a couple questions. One was, you said that rhino horn, is it rhino horn or keratin that's been shown to do fever reduction in children? I mean, has that fever reduction in children been shown with just keratin that we use in the West, or is it specific to rhino horn?
That's a good question. The study was done on rhino horn. It was specifically done to sort of find potential alternatives to rhino horn. So water buffalo horn was the one thing they were kind of comparing it against or looking at, and also Western medicines like Tylenol and aspirin. I do not know if, I don't know if anybody's done a study with just some other sort of keratin, either wool keratin or, another keratin type of a product. And that actually would be an interesting piece of research to do, actually, I think.
Yeah.
Was there a second one?
No, it's just, just out of curiosity. I mean, you say that this is totally up to you, it's your business, but I mean, I'm just curious if you've given thought to, instead of trying to go after the, just selling into the Chinese traditional medicine method that you were just talking about, instead of partnering with the smugglers who have those contacts. Because I mean, if you try to go into Chinese medicine, they'll be like, oh, this isn't real rhino horn, and you might, lose or have difficulty breaking into that market, I would think. As opposed to if you try partnering with the smugglers who don't really care or are just in it for the cash and have like that distance separation to the use markets in China and Vietnam, I would think that would make more sense to try to distribute your product, because they're the ones that have traditionally, hunted the rhino and supplied the rhino away from the Vietnamese and Chinese markets. So they're able to, basically smuggle your horn to them, and the Chinese wouldn't really know the difference, as opposed to if you're trying to contact the Chinese and sell it to them, well, then they'll have, strong suspicions about, why it's not real rhino.
Yeah, I think. Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think for us, it's never. I mean, a lot of times, I think people have a tendency, we do too, of saying it's got to be either or. We try always to say and, like we're going to do it this way and that way, and try as many ways as possible. So I kind of lend, or I guess I should say, I feel that you're probably right, that it may be better sort of to approach from the bottom of the chain instead of from the top of the chain. But we're going to try both. I mean, we've only lately sort of looked more at like working further away from the end user. But our goal is basically to move on every side of the market and try every sort of penetration point, and not try to prejudge which is the best way to do, and just collect the data and figure out what is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I think the most tantalizing aspect of this venture is the idea of using as a non-violent means in order to restructure a market that had been previously asserted with violence from several different parties and just general forms of control and the stepping on of personal choice, and that some people want rhinoceros horn, and instead it's been a market regulated through violence rather than a sort of a creative hacker-like solution.
Well, I think prohibition is always our gut response to anything we don't like, is to prohibit it. And so we all know, though, prohibition is sort of leads to a lot of bloodshed and a lot of friction. And so if there's ways to do things without prohibition that let people, engage in their behaviors and customs in a way that's not environmentally destructive, and that's something that we want to support and embrace. And that's basically Pembient in a nutshell.
Okay. looks like we're finishing up. Does anybody have any final comments or questions or anything like that? No, no. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for talking to us. I know that some of the first questions were pretty hardcore economics questions.
That's great.
Thanks for staying in with us, and it's been a really unique experience to talk to a person such as yourself in one of the first sort of the first round of these globally disruptive biotech startups that have been appearing in the U.S. And we'll definitely stay in touch and try to support your mission. We had somebody over here that had been doing a lot of similar work in Kenya, and but we'll try to get him connected with you. Thanks for coming, and see you later.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, everybody. I really enjoyed being here, and hopefully I can make it to Austin some point and actually see your space live. I'd love to do that.
Do you have
the email was Matt or Matthew?
Matthew at Pembient.com.
Matthew.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember, just ask me. I'm on the meetup. So thanks, Matt. See you later. It's been good.
Bye-bye.
Okay. What a